What's up, y'all? After watching Starry Lock's video on the UP, I realized that I've never really done a close-up UP whacking, is what we call it. And looking down here, I've got a little bit of an issue going on with how organized it is, as well as a few new ones that I have to get. Put up. So I'm going to use this opportunity to go ahead and whack one up close, so you can kind of see how I feel, just how we do it. One of the fun things that I have to do is move everything away from the vise. All right, so we punch, smack, beat a lot of these things, keying them up to customers' keys. One of the important things about it is, so you've got the original key with the code number, and then you have copies. So one of the biggest issues that you can run into, as with Quickset Smart Key or whatever else, is if you take a worn down copy or a bad copy and try to key up one of them, and then you come along and try to use an original key, there's going to be problems with it. So always try to use the original key. Another thing is you have, even if I took this and I went and I code cut it on the machine, say I was trying to be slick and I had 20 of these to do, I didn't want the customer's key to get wear, because I'm going to show you there's some things that you have to do to make it work right. But you can't be slick and code cut one to the number, take the code cut key and use it to set the lock, because it will be off and it will ruin the lock. So always try to use the most original or the best copy that you can. Take it off the ring here, which, what's up with this little bitty ring? Take it out of the box, and you do need a sturdy vise. Drop it in there and leave it. I don't clamp it down on the padlock shackle. It's still free like that. I just bring it in to where it's touching. This is the original master tool. I believe they've changed this design a little bit, but you can see there's plenty of channel for it to bypass the head. You should never hit the head of the key when you're doing this. Another important thing is the size of the hammer, what you're beating it with. This is going to be a little too much. This is going to be not quite enough. And this will be just about right. And it's really dependent on the force of that blow. You can't tap it. Some people press them. There's presses. But it's kind of doing it the same way. You have to hit it straight down, and you have tap, and then you have a harder tap, so that you're kind of in between those two. You don't want to swing it full force, which is why you don't want the heaviest one, and it does need a little force, so that's why you don't want the lightest one. Now this is an optional step. Usually we don't do this, but I don't know if it hurts anything or not. Houdini, just spray a little bit in there. Take your key, make sure it's inserted fully, and let me zoom in. So that you can see how the tool rests on the core, just like that. Needs to be with the key kind of centered in the two, and make sure it's sitting right on the face of the core all the way around. And we're going to zoom back out a little bit, maybe, so that you can see how hard I'm hitting it. You want to hold it still on there as best as possible. Hopefully you won't be having to fix a camera to do this. And there we go. So going back to that, make sure it's level here. Make sure you're centered right there on your core, and whack. Now, if you hit it too hard, it's going to screw it up. If you don't hit it hard enough, you can sometimes get away with doing a double tap to try to get it to work or to go in fully. Really, it's just a repetitive practice type thing. Once it's there, just turn. And it's going to be kind of crunchy. You can hear that crunchy. So we're going to pull it in and out a couple of times. These are really rough right after you do them, and it takes quite a bit of smoothing out. So every time I do one, we spend about a minute doing this with the core. Another optional step is if you see when you pull the key out, focus. When you pull the key out, the core wants to come out a little bit. Sometimes that's problematic when you have keys with a deep cut here and shallow cuts towards the tip. The key, see how it kind of is a little grabby coming out? One thing we do for that, it's not overly attractive. And in one of my other videos, somebody mentioned you could do this with a ball bearing. I have not bought a ball bearing to do this with. You can do it with a punch. Basically what you're doing is not that small of a punch, but basically what you're doing is pushing in. If we pull this back out, core, once you want the core to kind of stay in as much as possible. So you have this lip around the core, and what we have found, I don't use one of these, I use a flat head, pretty much a 3/16, just flat head. And unfortunately this does put little marks on each side, but I would much rather the lock remain working. We have had many instances where this comes out. So I'm going to leave it zoomed in. I'm not going to tap hard. We can use the smaller guy for this one, but get it back braced in the vise. Go right at about 3 or 9 o'clock. I'm going to do both sides, one at 9 o'clock, one at 3 o'clock. If you are a little OCD, you can kind of eyeball it to make it good. And we're just going to tap a couple of times on each side. And what that does is pushes down kind of a ramp. See how it's a little push down right there? You don't, now again, you don't want to do that too hard. If you beat that down really hard and it's pushing down in the core, so what that's doing is instead of this big gap right here, it's putting a kind of a brace on the core, and that will allow, I'll just hit that camera, that will allow the key to come out much easier, especially when you have that deep cut. So there we go. That is it on whacking a master padlock. Just sit and work it a few minutes. It's got that catch. If you pull out a little bit, it have a catch. If you push in a little bit, it has a catch. So I kind of pull out, turn, push in, turn. And the key will turn both ways on these, which is unlike some other master products where it'll only turn that way. But all these little tips, and that's what it looks like after I'm off a little bit on my lines, but it's not really noticeable. And again, I've heard many suggestions where maybe put a ball bearing or something on there so that it flares all the way around down in, and I've not tried that. It'd be kind of awkward to do with a small ball bearing without hitting your fingertips. So anyway, there we go. Any questions or comments? As always, leave them in the comment section. Have fun whacking your master padlocks, y'all. They deserve a good whacking. Hey y'all, thanks for watching. Make sure and hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Also, there's a link up here in the top corner to subscribe to the channel. If you have not done so, make sure and hit that bell notification so you know instantly when we upload the newest content. Thanks again for being here. We really appreciate all y'all who watch our videos. So make sure and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we will catch you next video.